Hello, the internet. You're listening to They Came from the Silver Screen, a podcast where we talk about films each week and talk about their cultural relevance. I'm Josh Tregenza. As always, my co-host is Damian Danaher. How we doing, Damian?
Great to be here, mate. Great to be
Absolutely.
here.
We've had a bit of a hiatus due to technical difficulties.
Bit of a hiatus.
But we got it all sorted out and we're back into it.
Absolutely. It was a bit of a skip, a bit of a hurdle in proceedings, but as the immortal Ian Malcolm always said, life found a way. So here we are. We're back again.
And we tied our seatbelts together to make sure that we could fasten ourselves in.
Absolutely, because, we're busy men and we don't have time to work out the intricate, inner workings of a belt buckle.
We need to establish the metaphor of two females coming together to make the whole.
That never occurred to me before now.
Really?
That never occurred to me because the buckle...
Yeah.
Oh my God.
They're both the female.
He tied two vaginas together and made it work.
Made it work. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Finds a way, man. Finds a way.
I'm so happy about that. I did.
This, listeners, is what you pay $0 to come across.
This is what we deal with. We deal with the hot red button revelations from films that came out almost 20 years ago, if not more.
The genius of Spielberg lives on to this day, despite himself.
Physical metaphors. Oh, bueno. I love it. So...
Muy bien, muy bien.
Indeed. So,
but we're not talking about Jurassic Park this week.
No, I don't know why. we have got to change up our methodology of introducing films, because without fail, we will introduce a film by talking about a completely different one for at least 15 to 20 minutes. Which then just leads the whole audience, I presume, to question why the hell didn't we just talk about that film?
And we might. Listeners, if you want us to talk about Jurassic Park, please let us know, and then maybe we will. Who knows? You may learn some more things like we have just done. But this week, we are not doing Jurassic Park.
Nope.
We are not even doing a superhero film.
No blockbusters here.
Though it is tangential.
No vagina imagery.
No, probably not. I don't think we see any.
Not overt, anyway.
But this week we're as we said last time when we did Man of Steel, we're doing Creed.
Creed, the unofficial Rocky 7
reboot. Yeah, it's Rocky 7.
Mm-hmm. But it's
really
not. Well, I mean, it's the 7th in the series.
Is it?
Yeah.
It was... Because it was Rocky 4 and then...
5.
What was Rocky 5 about?
5 was about, his former protege, who he trained, then betraying him and going against him, and then he had to get back in the game and, fight his former, charge, and something happened. I saw an interview with him where they asked him to... This is Stallone... rate all of the Rocky movies, and he gave 5 a 0. So I don't think we really need to explore it too much.
I forgot about it. Yeah. I knew Rocky Balboa, 2006, that came out.
A beautiful
and that was
film.
That was okay. It was a weird film. It was very much like the mid 2000s. That was the sort of shit that was coming out. The weird weird 80s sort of films, but they weren't they were 80s films, but they were in now, and it didn't make any sense to be in nowadays.
We were sort of starting to kick off a lot of that kind of macho 80s nostalgia. I can't recall.
Well, Stallone did it with
Rambo as well, yeah. And then I can't recall what year the first Expendables came out, but it wasn't too many years after.
It must have been around that time.
I think it was 2009. I don't know
Makes
for
sense.
sure, but it was all around that period that we started seeing the nostalgia kick in, and I think to be perfectly honest, it was more the nostalgia of the stars of these movies that
Mm.
really just really wanted to be in a movie again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it definitely seemed like Sly was like he was trying to get back into it,
I think
and like
he wanted to
he,
do a do over as well.
mm,
He
which
wanted to
was
end it on better terms, which I mean, like I've only seen bits of five, and this is like years ago as well. But
mm,
hot damn, you're not missing out on anything. Whereas Balboa, because it was written and directed by Stallone, was actually you know as I recall it, I haven't seen it since last year. A really sort of sensitive and kind of heartfelt re-examination of the whole franchise, really, and where he ended up and all that sort of stuff. It was actually very,
mm,
very tender, surprisingly.
yeah, well, yeah, it was really tender for Rocky the character. Like it had Paulie, it had Adrian. Like it's because
Well,
I
It
watched
had
it.
Adrian's grave.
That's true, yeah. But it had who like it was the um Adrian de facto. I think it was his sister, Rocky's sister.
Oh no, no, it was like it was a. Oh, I forget her name. I forget the actress's name, but she played like a slightly younger girl that Rocky had like known growing up,
Mm.
and
But yeah, it was
then
like this de facto Adrian sort of like, hey, give him that push he needs.
yeah, the kind of the feminine support, like
Mm.
the yin to the yang, the kind of like you have to be sensitive to be a good fighter sort of thing, and yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, you
yeah. That's what threw me because I thought she was Adrian because I didn't watch the whole thing. I was like saw bits of it and I was like, wait, is that Adrian? Like I thought she was gone by
no
then, but
man, she did.
she did.
Do you know what we're doing?
Yeah. What?
We're talking about another movie.
Yeah, but this one leads up to it, and it's really weird because we're not even talking about like the best Rocky films. Like we're not talking about 1 and 4.
1 and 4 were
Like
absolutely the
three,
best.
and then so 1, 4, 3, 2, Balboa, and then 5, I guess. And like those were that like that's how it plays out as
It's an
like
interesting bell
that like
curve, that like series of movies where you have one, um, and watch me do a good segue here. We have the first movie, which was very much this kind of cinema verite examination of a boxer down on his luck, just trying to make ends meet, a very sort of working class, uh, brass tacks, basic, examination of just one man and his desire to follow a dream or whatever. Then
mm,
and he succeeds by losing.
yes,
That's how the first movie ends. And then the grand distillation of the opposite of that we see in number four, where basically it's all about spectacle, not really about emotion. I mean, look, in four you've got Carl Weathers, you've got Apollo Creed getting killed
mm,
by Ivan Drago in the ring, but that didn't really serve as any kind of like grand emotional cadence so much as just a script uh, excuse for Rocky to then, go forth and participate in one of the greatest on-screen workout montages of all time. And by the end of that film,
yeah,
he takes on basically a Russian Superman and then does a speech and ends the Cold War.
mm,
And then we come to Creed,
absolutely.
which brings us right back to the end of this bell curve, right back once again to the start of the franchise. And it's one of the reasons why I think it has been so universally loved
Mm,
and so adored and so critically respected and acclaimed, because it went back to the basics, because what it understood was that like everyone sort of said a lot, like when it first came out, that Ryan Coogler, the director writer, he didn't really change anything. There's not too many beats in that movie that are dissimilar from other films in the franchise, but the difference was that he understood, at least I feel, that you didn't need to treat them as important. If that makes any sense.
Well, yeah. So it was. I guess it was. It was also. He updated it to the appropriate time frame, and it, like, he put in, of course, like, Rocky was very much, was he considered Italian? Like, Rocky was.
Well,
Was
he
he
was
Italian?
the Italian stallion, man.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So he was considered an Italian, and they, like, back in, was it 70s, 80s when Rocky came out?
First
So around that
Rocky
time.
came out, strangely enough, I think it came out around almost the
Yeah.
same time as Star Wars. I think it was around 1979, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Gotcha.
No, no, no.
So at
Sorry,
that time,
76. It came beforehand.
76. Yeah. Gotcha. So it was around the time where it was like, you couldn't, like, if you had a film with, a black lead, it was kind of exploitive still.
Yeah,
It was still
absolutely.
getting off that
Or
time.
at the birth of that, that 70s, 80s, black exploitation type films. I mean,
Yeah.
I
So
suppose, yeah, I guess I agree with you in the sense that it wouldn't have been taken seriously.
absolutely.
You
So, and
know,
then, like Italians or Irish, those are the safe people to then tell that sort of story with.
yeah. Well,
Whereas,
traditional racial figures of adversity in that period
absolutely.
were, the Italians, the Irish,
Mm.
the blacks, and everything like that. If you tried to make Apollo the main character in Rocky, and you know Rocky the 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 villain, or at least the opposing character, people, I don't, it wouldn't even have been hate. Like, people just wouldn't have understood it, because they would have asked, why is he being, because you just think, like, why is he not being like some sort of like Pam Grier kind of thing, you're under arrest, sugar, sort of like,
Mm.
heightened,
Yeah, the
do
acceptable
doohickey
version.
blackface, bullshit, honky black characters of,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of, mainstream cinema.
Yeah, like Skarsky and Hutch
Yeah,
sort of
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, but absolutely. So I
Yeah,
mean,
so
that's the first real thing that really makes Creed pop, is the fact that they realize that, this is a sport that is dominated, by black players. I made a
and it has been
and
for years.
absolutely, you go back to Sugar Ray Leonard and all that sort of stuff.
Mm.
And another thing that I sort of like discovered when watching it early today, was that for the first time, it throws into rather stark relief the classist and economic aspects,
Mm.
coherent with the sport. When
But in a very strange way.
mm,
That's what I like about this
it
too.
is that curious thing, because it brings to the fore for the first time the understanding that, for so many people, especially, young disenfranchised black kids, this is a way for them to rise up and escape, their upbringing, which is why, that moment early on where uh, Adonis goes to talk with, I will always know him as Avon
Oh,
Barksdale from The Wire. I don't know,
yeah,
I don't know the name of the actor,
yeah, yeah. So
but I'll
no,
just
it's
call him
when he goes
Avon.
into
Yeah, and he goes and he says, yeah,
Apollo's gym.
and he says, "Train me, train me, train me." And the
Then
guy
do it. You can start
and the
off.
guy says, "What do you mean? You've never tasted desperate. You've never tasted like any of the true
Yeah, you've never had to.
desire
You
and
don't have to
need."
fight for your life.
Yeah,
This isn't like you either die out in the streets or you fight here. That's what you've never had to experience that, because what is it, like 8 to 10? Adonis was in foster homes and all that. Then after that, Mama Creed comes and takes him, which within the first 5 minutes of a film unpacks so much. Like, even if you had not seen the the previous films, that's so much. It is a woman who has her husband has died, and she is taking an error he has made in infidelity and born a child from that, and is taking that upon herself to do the right thing still.
And is there some sort of like the thing like he's a remnant of, you know, Creed Senior?
Well, yeah, he's got that fighting
Well, I mean, and
spirit.
he is the relic. He is like I don't want to say leftover because that sounds terrible, but
He's all that's left of what of Apollo Creed was,
yeah, it's the legacy of
and
her husband, you know.
and it's so much like it is so subtle, and it really talks to what a great film this is, that so quickly in 15 minutes it unpacks so much of the motivations of Mama Creed, of Adonis, and then it even touches base on Rocky.
And it is,
Like, it unpacks so much, and then it even starts talking about like the actual players within the world of boxing. You know, when he walks into the gym in LA, you know, Stuntman is the guy that he fights that he gets knocked down against.
yeah, exactly, the one that, yeah,
And
proves he ain't ready.
that's the guy. Yeah, and that's the guy who is then facing the main antagonist of the film. What was it? Pretty Boy.
Pretty Roy, Ricky Conlon, I think it was.
Yeah, Ricky Conley. Yeah, yeah. So and then so it's like it sets up all these pieces so quickly, and yet it's so well done that you don't even realize that it's happened as quickly as it has.
Well, I mean,
it's so digestible.
That's the point of you know, having only done two films, two professional films. That's one of the charms and one of the strengths that I think that Ryan Coogler has as a director, is that he very much guns for that verite style of filming, which is basically just to document, to observe, not to judge in any way the nature of the situation, but rather just stand back and sort of allow things to happen. And that comes across a lot in like just, and I gotta shout the praises of Maurice Alberti, the cinematographer.
Yeah.
And that woman is an absolute marvel, because the way she constructs the film, the fluidity of the camera, the way how, like, in so much
man.
of the movie, it dances in scenes the same way that a fighter would. And how, you know, in the very first fight when he's down in Mexico, it regards Donnie from a distance, stands outside the ring for the entire time because we don't know him yet.
Yeah.
And so it mirrors that same disconnect that the audience has with the character. So we don't know him yet. We don't understand him. We might even be a little bit sort of apprehensive and uncaring towards him for the same reason that we like spoke about before. Whereas, like, this is a rich kid that wants to box just because he feels like it, not because, like, there's some sort of ingrained, you know.
Yeah, he doesn't need to. I guess he feels like he says that, you know, I've always been fighting, but it's always been his choice to fight.
Yeah.
It's never been a necessity.
Yes, exactly.
And that's kind of what plays into him. His, like, he's born into this. This is not. I guess this isn't a choice of his. It's you know, it's hereditary.
It is. It's a different kind of a lack of choice that these kids have. Whereas, you know, the younger ones, the ones that, you know, Avon talks about, saying they don't have a choice because that's their life. He doesn't have a choice because he's motivated by legacy. And I mean, look, I mean, that's the beauty of the film, is that it makes us understand that both sides, both motivations have their own sense of worth. It's a beautiful scene where he's at his house and he throws onto the projector that gigantic. I mean, like, it's that really strange, like, dichotomy of, because he's in a house, you know, Mama Creed and everything like that. He's got all the wealth he could want. It's a massive projector, an enormous screen. He throws up on YouTube a fight between, you know,
so they're life size,
Apollo and Rocky. and he's standing there shadow boxing, you know,
And he shadow
as
box
his dad, but you
Apollo.
see his dad tower over him.
Mm,
And so it's that fantastic representation of the fact that no matter what his comfort is, what his success is, you know, his ability, he's, you know, that white collar job that he decided to quit and everything like that, he still is at the end of the day completely overshadowed and dominated by the memory of the man that
yeah.
bore him. And
Which is why
it's
he sees himself as Rocky as opposed to Apollo.
yeah, exactly, because he's still the underdog.
And and that is this this film is him working to get out of his father's shadow, but also accepting that this is who he is.
Mm,
As a man, I am going to be a Creed, but I don't have to be underneath my father. I'm my own man. This is what I'm fighting for.
absolutely. And it also comes down to like, and it's another one, it's that same dichotomy, that same kind of, it's all, this movie's all about it's about you know, the unconscious drive that everyone has. It's about being haunted by the sins of those who have come before you, about, you know, past desires and everything like that. And it's another one of the reasons that I think this movie is an absolute cracker of a film, and it's because of Tessa Thompson,
Bianca in the
who
film.
plays
Yeah.
Bianca, who in any other kind of film would have just been one note, meet cute love interest that, you
Yeah.
know, he has a
Basically,
compulsory.
the Adrian
Well,
of the
yeah,
film.
and it's you could almost suggest that the I mean, her character, I mean, obviously I don't think it is, but it is kind of, I almost feel like an unconscious criticism of the meekness and sort of one dimensionality of Adrian as a character, who's basically was this meek girl that, I mean, for lack of a better word, Rocky kind of forcefully wooed, and then her role basically was relegated to looking incredibly worried in the
Yeah.
corner of a ring. Whereas Coogler and Co. basically said, fuck that shit. We're down with actually, you know, portraying human beings, God forbid, even if they are ethnic and women, which I know is
Ooh,
still a, you
such a
know,
hot button.
well, gosh, I mean, like, well, it is though, and that's the thing.
But this is,
And
and
that's the
this
thing.
is
I
such
mean,
a great thing.
the movie is a miracle purely because of that fact that you know,
B. Jordan is the lead, Coogler is the director, and Tessa Thompson is the main female in it. Like, it's,
and she's
apart from Sly, there is very, apart from Sly and then the English blokes, there's very few, like, white people in this. It is a film about, you know, the black community. And like a lot of people in, like a lot of the people in Philadelphia that they go, like they go to the Philly cheesesteak place. You know, it's a very traditional Philly cheesesteak place. It's warm community sort of thing, and it's just I don't think you could see that sort of thing in Rocky because it was so solitary. It was about the man, Rocky,
yeah, and
and then it was
also
Paulie helping the man, Adrian helping the man. Like it was everyone was helping Rocky get to his goal. Whereas there's so much more of it in Creed that it was so much more about community.
I was going to say it's absolutely about a sense of community, about, like, you know, he is not just himself. He is all of
Though
us.
he is fighting for
He is all
himself.
of us. You know, he fights for himself, but he fights for all of us.
Yeah, and everyone's doing their own thing. Bianca is, you know, she's going to become deaf soon. She's going to be deaf, like that is a certainty sort of thing. But during her time, she is pursuing her musical career. You know, that's her motivation is like I'm doing this. I'm, you know, enjoying life. I'm doing what I can during this time that I have. She has her own motivations towards it,
Yeah.
and then she's with Adonis.
And that's
You
a
know,
thing. I mean, like, the fact that they're together is almost an afterthought to her dramatic trajectory, and it's yet another really sort of fascinating take on the whole movie's theme of, like, what unconsciously drives us to move forward. And it's really curious the way her and Donnie come together, because Donnie wants to box because he feels some sort of uh, deep-seated, let's say, biological or
yeah, it's part
ancestral
of
like
him for
drive to
whatever
do it,
reason.
whereas Bianca, in many ways, is driven to succeed out of a certain desperation and knowledge that her time is so limited.
Absolutely.
And so it's that really strange thing that, like, you see these two characters both with like hopes and dreams, and if you had to sort of like stack them up together, you kind of basically say, look, Bianca's got so much more to lose
Absolutely.
than Creed does.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like he's gonna be fine if he loses.
Mm.
Like he's well off, he's got a good education, and like he's like if he gets hit down, then it's fine. It's just bruising his ego. Bianca's got like she has a time frame going on with her. Like this is going to happen.
And that's sort of, I guess, what like one of the few criticisms of the film I have is that they didn't, in my mind, really adequately play out the fallout that came from Donnie assaulting that musician at the
Little
the
Creed.
big important gig that she was doing,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
she was opening for. That we built up and up and up and up and up and up to this moment where this is her big break and everything like that. And he fucks it
Mm.
up because he's found out that Rocky's ill and everything like that. And he's not thinking straight. And this guy comes in and condescends and he does what he always does and has a crack and everything like that. And then she gets pissed at him and she leaves. And then I suppose, I guess that's the thing.
It's an ex machina that
I
like
know,
she turns up.
yeah. And I guess, like, that's the thing. Like, it's that really curious dichotomy that because this is a Ryan Coogler film, and if you understand like the other work that he's done, most notably Fruitvale Station, which also starred Michael B. Jordan
Michael B.
and
Jordan.
was
Yep.
about Oscar Grant, the poor guy that basically got gunned down by the Bay Area Transit Authority just for jumping a turnstile,
Mm.
and that whole movie was amazing. And the thing about it was that it didn't treat anything that happened in the movie with any sort of great importance, because all
Mm.
it was his last day on Earth, and nothing terribly exciting happened in the way that, like, people would associate exciting with, like, plot developments or anything like that. He
Yeah.
has breakfast. He, has a
It's a regular
chat with
day.
his girlfriend. He talks, and the beauty of that is, by not treating it or any of the events that followed as important, the audience knowing what the end result is, because you know that he dies at the end of the movie
Yeah.
because it's based on the true story. It Everything else prior to that is fed with this just insane level of tension and dread,
Mm.
because you see the gentleness and
The
the
humanity of it.
humanity of it all, and the basic humanity of it all, where there's no high stakes. It's just a guy trying to do right by himself, and that makes you feel so much more for him when eventually it does happen.
Mm.
And then, so when you translate that style of filmmaking, I think, to Creed, which is basically what Coogler has done, at the same time, you still have to cleave to certain story beats
Yeah.
that produce the requisite moment of drama, heightens that shit up, so then there can be a reconciliation, a grand moment to punctuate the exclamation into the final fight of the
Yeah,
film.
it's
and
very Hollywood,
and that's the
but
thing.
it's not working through it. It's just, look, it happens. She turns up. That's
Yeah,
look. It's okay because she just turned up, and then you can now do your fight, and it's going to be great because you have her support, which is weird.
it was just disappointing to me, and it's funny. I mean, you know what? Like, if they hadn't treated a character with such respect in the first two acts of the film, I guess I probably wouldn't have noticed. But
And I think because of it, like why that was the case, because they needed to set that up. And I think if this film did not have Sylvester Stallone in it, you would have had um, the you know the reconciliation that was deserved of this film, of what happened. But because Bianca kind of took the back seat once
once he moved in
to
with Rocky,
once he moved in with him and they started doing the proper training.
it stopped becoming about him and Bianca, and it immediately started becoming about him and Rocky.
In very much in the simple act of moving locations, it was exactly that. And Bianca took a back seat to Rocky's illness and his fight,
Yeah.
which is not like,
Let's not for a
I
second.
think
Let's
that
not for a
is
second take anything away from Stallone,
absolutely
because I mean, like,
fantastic bit.
an absolutely amazing performance. I quite literally can't fault it. The scene where he finds out his diagnosis is just, it's a level of understated, brutal and beautiful humanity that you wouldn't have expected
It
from an
is
actor
it
that's
is
mostly known for his more
absolutely.
outrageous film roles. But then at the same time, you understand that this is a character that he's lived with for the better part of 30 years. So I mean, he is Rocky.
Yeah, that part of Creed reminded me of the final scene of Rambo,
Oh yes.
which fantastic, like, is such emotion. It is really raw of Stallone, like, because he's a very young actor at the time, so he's got a lot going on with it, and it is so raw, and it has those, it has that spark that you can see in his performances in Creed. Like when he is able to act in a dramatic way properly, like despite himself or other directors that get in his way, he is fantastic. And Coogler really, like, he got to him in such a good way that he was able to bring that out in him.
I entirely agree. It's funny because, like, when you look back on the very first Rocky, that was absolutely it was a human portrait. Because, I mean, like, I mean, never mind whatever, rumor or urban legends there were about how he wrote the script in 3 days and everything like that. The fact of the matter
Yeah,
was, it
yeah.
was basically based upon his own desperation, just in a different kind of industry. But then he was able to feed that into the character so thoroughly that we absolutely believed it. And over
Well, yeah, it
over the
fit in with everything.
and over the years, the character lost that humanity because he became a caricature. The same way that Rambo became a caricature. Because I mean, if you look at Rambo 3, in
Yeah,
Afghanistan
yeah.
and all that sort of shit. I mean, like that, and you try to compare that with the speech he has with Richard Crenna in the police station at the end of the first one,
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
when he's basically just weeping over his mates
Yeah.
who have died,
So emotional,
over
so
over
raw.
over the lack of worth that he feels the society has for him, his lack of direction, all that sort of stuff. It's an absolutely, like,
because
fascinating mirroring.
it spoke to the Vietnam veterans, whereas the Afghani veterans, they didn't have that same thing. You know,
Yeah.
they were like, after the Vietnam War, there wasn't that um, there wasn't that ridicule. There wasn't the same sort of like national hatred in America towards veterans. You know, they
Well, I
got
mean,
spat upon. Like, as
yes.
opposed to all others, they were treated with the respect that was due to them.
And I mean also the all that sort of stuff with the Soviets didn't last as long, and it was never an overt. It was always, I mean,
Well, it
like
became
by
Hollywood
yeah,
then.
yeah, I mean by the time the third, like it was always sort of like vague. Like they, yeah, I mean, like it got hot, like, but it was basically still a Cold War,
Yeah.
fought by proxies, fought by, you know, undercovers, covert people acting on behalf of this and that and everything else. So like it never sort of had that same sort of material significance.
Well, yeah, outside of like spy films, it didn't work.
Mm,
Like it felt half-hearted. It
yeah.
was just an enemy that we could talk about. You know, we didn't have North Korea at the time. So, or at least we weren't talking about North Korea at the time. So it was the Soviets then.
Yeah.
Like that
It
was the
might as well have
guys.
been. We always need our boogeyman.
Yeah. And that's who
And
they were at the time.
it frankly doesn't even matter who it is.
Mm.
It's quite interesting actually because I read an interview um, a little while back. This would have been a couple of years ago, actually. It was in context with that film We Were Soldiers, the Mel Gibson one about the battle in the Da Nang Valley
Yeah, yeah.
during the Vietnam War and everything like that. And it was in conjunction with a Roger Ebert review where he basically said, that he was at a Vietnamese film festival and there were a whole bunch of war films there about the war, but you never saw the faces of the enemies from the Vietnamese point of view. The nations were never named or anything like that. And it was curious because in the interview, Ebert asked one of the directors, "Why don't you ever name them?" And the guy said, "Because it doesn't matter. Because they're
They
the
were just
enemy.
faceless enemies.
They
Yeah.
were all, they have always been the enemy."
Yeah. And that's yeah, that was just how it was. And we saw that, and that's like, you know, Rocky 4 that happened. You know, it was the enemies, and then it was like the resolution.
Mm.
But what was strange was like, really, really, the Rocky series should have ended at that point.
Because I mean, like, what else? Where else can you go after you've single-handedly ended the greatest threat to human civilization with a single speech in a exhibitional boxing match?
But at the same time, doing nothing to the world at large. Like it doesn't change like the world. Like it's not like a utopia at like in the next films. Like it is still the world that we live in. So it was like it was inconsequential. It was just it stopped the Cold War that was apparently going to happen. Like were nukes going to get dropped if Drago won?
I can
Like is
only
that what
presume that that
like
was the case based on the context of the film. That they were basically saying if the outcome of this match was bad, basically at least one continent on the planet was going to get fucked up.
I kind of want that to like a spin-off sort of thing of like the alternate reality where that happens and like Rocky is like a Mad Max sort of character.
I was going to say, and
My
then he
world is pain.
and then what they discover Drago's brain that's somehow been preserved, and they place it into a cyborg body.
Brilliant.
I want to talk about the music of this film because again it feeds right back into this whole thing that we've been talking about the dichotomy of the ancient versus the modern, the sense of tradition that comes with a Rocky film in terms of the beats of the character, the beats of the plot point, and everything like that, but also having something new. And that's where I think employing the goddamn peerless Ludwig Göransson, who is an amazing Swedish composer who people, funnily enough, will actually recognize mostly from his work on TV shows such as Community and New Girl, and also
What?
Seriously, and then
Amazing.
most recently on album collaborations as a producer with Childish Gambino.
Oh, really?
Really,
Nice.
because they met on Community.
Okay, I can hear that sort of stuff in the soundtrack.
And it's this beautiful like smashing together of the well, I don't want to say ancient, but like the classical and the modern, musical motifs. And we never get like they never, and I have to say I actually really respect this that they never at any point really pay tribute or like shamelessly recreate like or just plant a bit of Bill Conti's Fly Higher.
Yeah, they do. They do put a bit in it, but it's never.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
always overshadowed.
When he gets up in the Ricky Conlon fight after he gets that like
Mm.
savage knockdown and he gets
But
out.
it's never. It's
But it's
never.
only about 3 bars,
Yeah.
and it's the perfect amount of lip service.
Mm.
And it's glorious. The fact that he worked with Tessa Thompson on all the songs that she writes for that movie
And they're great songs.
in their own
Like,
right, which is so
yeah.
strange because I mean, like, I don't know the number of times you have like quote unquote musicians
Mm.
as
Well, think
character,
about
like
what is
or
it? Be
whatever.
cool.
Well, I'd rather
Be
not.
cool
But
is like well, yeah, of course, but it's like this. There was legitimate musicians in that film that were actually singing their own songs for. They actually created those songs for that sort of thing, or they at least performed them for that. Like it was just rubbish, as opposed to this. Tessa Thompson, like those, like they're throwaway songs.
yeah,
They could have
because you
been
hear about
anything,
maybe 40 seconds of like any one of them, throughout the
and there's like
duration
four,
of the
five
movie.
songs.
But then, like, you can download the whole album
They're
and listen to
so
the whole
good.
thing, and that shit would stand on its goddamn own as a
I'm waiting to
solo
hear them in a
album.
club.
I would love to hear them in a club. Donnie loved to hear
So
them in a
good.
club. That's why he hooked up with her in the first place.
That's why he beat down the guy who was headlining.
And that guy thought it was all about the love with Baby Creed, but he was like, "Nah, man, that ain't me." And then
Baby Creed,
a
Baby
black man
Creed.
hit another black man, and race relations in
Well,
America got set back at least 25 years. At least that's what
well, yeah,
Republicans would have you believe.
the producers like required that sort of thing. It's like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? Why is there no black on black violence? We can't have this. This is Hollywood.
I know it's not Chicago, but could you at least give like the suggestion that black people as a whole aren't together?
Yeah, come
Because
on.
otherwise
Whoa.
white people are going to get nervous.
They're gonna think that like
and then
Black
and
Lives
that, and
Matter,
that, and,
man. Whoa.
nah, man. Hashtag all lives matter.
Oh God. Well, if we didn't piss off enough people, we're certainly doing it now.
Well, look, I mean, well, I was going to say.
Well,
I
they're
mean, like,
racist bigots, so go fuck themselves.
well, exactly. So, I mean, there you are. But I mean, look, I insulted American veterans in our last recording. Not that they know that because you took that part out of it, but I very much did, and I stand by that statement. But just
Please subscribe to our hidden tracks for all the deleted scenes from every episode.
all right. In the future, eventually, when we have like like a season of episodes, eventually we're going to have to release a series of outtakes, and it'll be called
And deleted scenes, yeah.
deleted scenes, and I'm not sure what it'll be called, but
Too risque for primetime listening.
I was going to say too hot for TV, but actually, you know what? I'd love for it to be called Too Hot for TV.
Yes, too hot for TV.
Just
All right,
because
cool.
just because it would provoke an insane amount of trollish nitpicking on YouTube for no reason whatsoever. I don't know. I'm sorry. The idea of pissing off a whole bunch of like pedantic strangers really appeals to me.
Yeah, shout out to all of our YouTube listeners who watch the watch our program.
That comment was directed at you.
Yeah, please field your comments to us, and we will not read them.
Ever. I
Oh.
have way too little self-respect to subject myself to the horrors of internet's judgment of our of our actions. No way, man. No way. I choose to live in a fantasy world where people actually like respect and adore our opinions. I'm so-
That is a big fantasy you got going for
oh
yourself.
man, I'm sorry. I actually just realized the hilarity of that in the moment of actually saying it. So, Sylvester Stallone,
Yeah, let's get into him.
because as we chatted previously, this very much is. I mean, when we sort of
This is
like
not a Rocky film.
no, it's not, and that's the beautiful thing about it, and it's the one thing that I sort of have to like claim respect to Sly for sort of basically saying, I will. I will not write this movie. I will not direct this movie. I will give of this character that I have shepherded through film and popular culture for more than 30 years now. I will
Mm.
take a chance with this guy and assume that he's going to do right by him. And it paid off. And it's a beautiful coda. It's a beautiful, like, because it's almost, again, I don't know if it's a conscious, like, act or not, but again, like his struggle with uh, it was a form of cancer, wasn't it? Like Hodgkin's
Yeah, yeah,
lymphoma. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's almost like an unconscious, like riposte to all the previous movies where he was basically invincible.
Yeah, it really it like 5 and 6 shouldn't have happened because 4 happened that he was on top of the world.
Mm.
And then the next
Literally,
time we
because
see
he
him,
finished his fucking montage on the top of an icy mountain, screaming
absolutely,
Drago, and
yeah,
then he
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 was
beat
ready.
he beat Russia single handed.
Yeah, so he did all of that. He like ended on Hunter, and then next we see him. He is, he's at his restaurant. He's just working that. He's just a regular guy. He doesn't want the spotlight. He doesn't want to deal with anything. He's living back at his house.
Well, mortality has struck him. His
Yeah,
wife's
because he's
dead.
lost.
His wife's
He's lost
dead.
his wife.
His
He's
best
lost
mate's
Paulie.
dead. His son wants nothing to do with him. He's in fucking
Yeah.
Canada enjoying their free healthcare. He doesn't give a shit about him. So it's very much, yeah, a dramatic realignment of his character back into the realms of reality.
And and then his last, whether he's in like the next like Creed 2 or anything like that, that's his last big fight is against cancer.
Yeah.
It is the great equalizer because if you live long enough through anything, you're probably gonna, enter into cancer.
And that's the thing. And I mean, like, and he beat that. So, like, at the end of the day, he finally did win. And so I suppose, like, should we suggest, like, as we kind of approach the nadir of, like, our conversation, would you suggest that there is a potential for this to turn into its own kind of franchise?
I really hope so. This film, like, if it does become a thing, Coogler would have to keep going with it. I don't know whether he'd do it though,
Yeah, I mean, he
because
doesn't strike
he
me as a
doesn't have
sort
a
of
track record.
That's the thing. I mean, like,
We
he's
don't know
this,
yet.
this is only his second movie, and I mean, like, it's that kind of
Plus, he's got
strange.
Marvel money going on.
That's indeed correct, and I suppose what I'd say to that is that knowing that he doesn't have a track record so far, and I mean, look, it's kind of like insane to presume that like someone who's done two films is one of those sorts of guys that like I don't do sequels
Mm.
sorts of thing. But it is that curious thing that now that he's been signed on to uh, do Black Panther. And this, I mean, like, I don't want to get into this too much because this is a conversation we could have for a long while. But it's a trend that I've noticed in a lot of blockbuster movies, Marvel movies, and other movies in general, is the poaching of the proven, critically acclaimed indie filmmaker to then lend cultural, credible, and critical credence to a blockbuster.
Yeah, well, it happened with Godzilla with Edwards.
Gareth
He's
Edwards,
now
it
yeah,
happened
he's now off Godzilla 2. He
exactly.
left.
I think he probably and what was the phrase I heard is that he wanted to pursue smaller projects of more interest to him. So that's a rare
Yeah.
example. That's a rare example of a guy actually bucking the trend.
Now,
But I
would that
mean,
happen with Coogler? Because
because he's
he's got potentially now two franchises that he could carry with him,
exactly. And I
and
suppose
like
one would
this is important.
I suppose one would hope that I guess you could try and understand the split personality between a franchise such as Creed and a franchise such as the Black Panther.
Mm. And they are
Because
different. They are different films. They are.
oh heavens to Betsy, they are different films, and I mean leaving aside the fact that he's got Michael B. Jordan in his corner for that film as well now.
Yeah, 3 for 3.
Very quickly turning into a Scorsese De Niro dynamic here.
Hey, I'm fine with that.
I'm absolutely
Like,
fine with that as well.
B. Jordan is the best thing in most films that he's in.
It's funny
He was,
because we haven't spoke. I mean, I spoke about like the fact that Avon Barksdale, the guy from The Wire. I mean, like, but that was one of Michael B. Jordan's first roles. Was in The Wire back when he was 15
yeah,
as a
God, yeah,
as
yeah.
the lowly gangbanger kid, and I forget his name. I forget his character's
I.
name.
It was
But
a
it,
small role, but
yeah,
yeah,
but he died in
yeah.
like season 3, and it's that beautiful trajectory now that's like so I mean, like I expect
He is a
nothing but
fantastic actor, and he was in Chronicle, correct?
he was indeed. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
and
was that was sort of his first major film role
yeah, and then
post The Wire.
Fruitvale Station
Fruitvale Station.
was before. Or, no, that was 2013. So
It was after. Yeah.
It was after. So he's really, apart from Fantastic Four, he's really hit the right
Well, I
films.
mean
Or
that's the
like he's
thing, and it's the mark of a good actor that he hasn't let a bad franchise drag him down as well, for lack of a better word, product. I hate to refer to actors as products, but like in certain like
it
circles,
hasn't
especially these sorts
diminished
of
his
movies.
own brand.
Exact. There we go. That's the phrase I
Yeah.
was looking for. Yeah.
Hey, Human Torch's the Human Torch always gets out of those franchises pretty
I
well.
was gonna say, the Human Torch has an excellent track record of being in mediocre Fantastic Four movies and then making it
And getting
massive
out.
in Marvel movies. Can we just like pause to appreciate the absolute irony of the fact that
It's like
Fox has lost out twice now
it's so good.
with Human Torches, and has basically been snapped up by Marvel in this
Like the casting director needs to be.
in this glorious moment of Fox going, "Oh wait, but won't that like create brand confusion amongst consumers?" And Marvel has basically just lifted a middle finger that could blot out the sun and gone, yeah, but also fuck you, Fox. Anytime you want to give us back X-Men and Fantastic Four, we're ready and waiting to actually make them decent properties again."
It would, yeah. I think that casting director for Fox needs to be hired. by Marvel. It just cut out the middleman. Just like, okay, who are you anticipating for this? And just,
Yes.
yep, all right, cool, we'll do that.
Oh, bless. That's fucking brilliant. Oh lordy. So I mean, like, I guess, like, yeah, we've skirted around the topic, but so yes, Ryan Coogler at the moment, anyway. I mean, things always change, but at the moment, Ryan Coogler is slated to direct and possibly also write the new Black Panther movie,
Mm-hmm.
starring oh hell,
Chadwick Boseman
Chadwick Boseman. That's correct,
as Black Panther,
as the eponymous Black Panther.
as T'Challa.
T'Challa, the king and protector of the
Mm-hmm.
nation state of Wakanda, briefly mentioned in the regrettably mediocre Avengers 2 Age of Ultron, but having a far larger role to play in the imminently being released Captain America 3 Civil War.
At the time
So,
of the recording, I've yet to see it.
indeed, I've seen it once, and I would desire to see it again, but viewers, indeed, that is going to be the topic of our next discussion. I think it's going to be
Absolutely.
it's going to be an interesting discussion purely because it kind of cleaves it, whether you like it or not, rather, it cleaves back to the discussion of the first film we ever reviewed, Batman versus Superman, because it tackles a whole bunch of the same themes about superhero accountability in a world that's no longer willing to accept their autonomy in action in the face of unacceptable collateral damage. It's also coming down to the fact that certain facets of these teams are going to be in war against each other, differing ideologies, all that sort of stuff. And so
It also
it'll be
seems like
interesting.
just fighting because of the sake of fighting.
Well, also, yes, but I guess we will address how effective that narrative element was in this movie versus Batman v Superman when we review it next week, and indeed a whole bunch of other comparisons that we could make to that movie. Because
Absolutely.
if we call this movie, if we call Civil War exactly what we would call Batman v Superman, which is basically an excuse, a very expensive excuse to put forward and advance the plot on a whole bunch of extra shit that's going to go down in the Marvel universe, the same as the DC film universe going on. How effective was
I,
that? I mean, like we can talk until the cows come home about how much DC was able to set up Justice League, and we can talk about how much Civil War sets up uh, the inevitable march towards the Infinity Wars that is going to come. But I think at the end of the day, it's about the ability that these filmmakers had. In this case, Joe and Anthony Russo, the directors of Winter Soldier, which is still in my mind the best Marvel
the
movie
best Marvel movie. Absolutely.
ever made by a
I think it
goddamn
goes toe to
country
toe with
mile.
Daredevil. Daredevil season one and Winter Soldier are the two best properties to come out of the Marvel
Oh,
licensing.
best believe. I mean, I would argue there's certain moments in season two of Daredevil, mostly to do with Joe Bernthal's Punisher.
Yes, I
Specific,
think Jessica Jones
specifically,
does beat out anything to do with the Punisher in season two. I think that's
as
a
on a,
show that does beat out.
on a holistic sense, absolutely. But I have a soft spot for the graveyard scene in episode 4 of season 2 of Daredevil,
Good point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good
because
point.
that is
It is
an
fantastic.
absolute masterclass in acting, and in not a single one of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films have you seen a level of humanity and pathos and acting on par with what Bernthal gives to the Punisher in that scene, in that show. And so we can only hope that there's that certain rumors about the inclusion of Daredevil and others, maybe in Infinity Wars, might hold to be true.
Could do. Only time will tell.
But indeed, I
and
feel
really,
like...
every week, every month, it all changes. I believe just the other day, Margot Robbie had talked, the WB into having the Harley Quinn solo film and potentially a Bird of Prey film as well that she would be in.
I did actually, yeah, I read that as well. I mean, in the sense that the Bird of Prey would be the villain to that movie, which is, oh gosh, we could go down a slippery
Train
slope
wreck
once
waiting to
again
happen.
of discussing Warner Brothers' pathological inability to actually give true justice to their characters. I mean, it filled me with absolute dread when because we know now that a solo Batman film with Affleck is absolutely happening, that Affleck is absolutely directing. But then the news that came about a week or two ago that basically said it won't just be one villain; it'll be name checking most of Batman's classic villains.
Oh, I'm sure it's
Why?
going to be great. I mean,
Well, that's the thing I
Spider-Man
don't understand.
3 was really good because it had 3 villains in it. And
That's
of
the thing I don't
course, you would need
understand.
more in it.
Because, I mean, say what you will about Affleck as an actor. As a filmmaker, I thought he had more sense.
I think, okay, so at that point, I think that is an issue with Jeff Jones, the writer and executive at DC Comics, not quite understanding the way that comics translate to movies, because in comic books it's very, 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 very easy to have 15 to 20 villains within the course of 3 pages, whereas in a film you really can't do that without some sort of payoff or establishing mythos to them. Purely because where comic books expect you to go read previous issues, movies try and hold you to we're gonna show you everything that needs to be before you get to the payoff. So it's going to be very interesting. Once again, this is a Batman that kills, and why does he have as many villains as he does? Who the fuck knows? It's all
Who the fuck cares
be...
is what I would argue. I feel like we should revisit that point when Suicide Squad comes out in August. But until then, I think we'll just leave that conversation exactly where it is. Otherwise, we will be here for another hour and a half. Lord knows we can
really
talk.
need to make sure that
can
we
talk.
get away from DC as much as possible.
So, look, we're going to for our next conversation, we're going to chat about Captain America, the Civil War. And then after that, we are going to, just purely for our own benefit and for the benefit of our audience, just for the sake of changing things up, we're going to completely divorce ourselves from the blockbuster as much as humanly possible. And we're going to talk about the Oscar-nominated film, The Big Short.
Absolutely. So Big Short, we've kind of talked about, as a very interesting film, and it is so far away. We talk about Creed, and then given the news of Black Panther, it kind of all set up as oh well, we're still following some sort of trend, unless Andrew McKay ends up ending up directing Ant-Man 2 or something like that.
Well, he did write it. I was hoping you wouldn't actually. Well, no, he edited the script on it. So I mean, you know what?
God damn it!
Shit, we've done it.
Oh, we are
We are forever married to the reality that most movies now, whether they want to or not, it's that 6 degrees of separation thing. That's that Kevin
We're all
Bacon
circling
thing.
a superhero film.
I was going to say Supernova, but okay.
Oh no, Nova is not going to be in any Marvel films just yet. So
Well,
we
probably
got some
not
time
yet.
for that.
Let's talk about maybe Phase 6 or something.
Let's wait till Doctor Strange
We
comes
joke,
out, and
we,
then we
we,
can.
we joke about that, but that shit's going to happen. Let's just be aware.
Hey, that's just Green Lantern for the Marvel universe. It's going to
Yeah.
happen. Except it's going to be better.
And good gracious me. On that note, I feel like we've exhausted our topic. Thank you for listening to our discussion
Thanks
of
for
Creed
listening.
this week. We, as usual, went completely off tangent, multiple points throughout the discussion, but I'm happy with what we had a chat about, actually.
Absolutely.
So,
Like, Creed is a fantastic film, and I really can't, like, praise it enough. Like, we saw it, like, you were back in Brisbane for for a short amount of time, and you talked me into, like, hey, let's go see Creed. And I was like,
yes,
I
I
knew
did.
about it, but I didn't, like, it wasn't, like, on, the top, the top of the list or anything like that. And you talked me into it, as you often do, to go see it. And I was absolutely blown away. Like, it is such a fantastic film, and I feel a lot of the stuff that surrounds it is what we talk about. It's really what we do in most of our podcasts. So, but it is a fantastic film, and if you have not seen it, I don't understand why you haven't, but you should go see it because it is a fantastic film.
Don't see it with the expectation that as we so sort of hackney described it at the beginning of the podcast, that it is Rocky 7. It's not.
It's not.
It is its own beast, and dare I say it, it's worth the price of admission alone for the boxing scene in the middle of the movie, where in a single unbroken take they go through an introduction, an approach to the ring, and two whole rounds of boxing without cutting the camera. It is one of the greatest modern instances of cinematography I've ever seen in a film, and absolutely all credit must once again go to Maurice Alberti, who is just an absolute godsend. Ryan Coogler, director, screenplay, story writer, Sylvester
The man
Stallone,
is a visionary.
for bringing the game and for bringing the trust to a new filmmaker and the ability to go with this modern interpretation of his character and a modern interpretation of the franchise in general. Michael B. Jordan, for giving his absolute all and bringing an entirely new character that could absolutely make his place and his presence known in sequels, as well as Tessa Thompson, an amazing, female co-star, and equal and better than
Absolutely.
Michael B. Jordan's character in very, very many ways. Finally, of course, Ludwig Göransson as for the music. Michael Schauver as the editor, along with Claudia Costello. A whole just incredible team. This movie, beyond anything else, is evidence of exactly what kind of amazing work you can do when you surround yourself with a team of just consummate genius professionals.
Absolutely. Could not have said it better myself. Of course, we didn't do it last episode, but the episode before that, shout out to Scoot McNairy.
Thank you so much,
fantastic
Scoot.
actor.
I love you,
Thanks
Scoot.
For listening. As always, Scoot.
Please, God.
If you do want to come onto the show, we'd love to have you. But for everyone else that has enjoyed the episode, please leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps us. Our hiatus probably knocked us back a few bits. Probably Brendan Fraser podcast is hurtling towards Bedazzled.
I refuse to believe it.
So really, we can't help with that. Only you, the listener, can help with that. If you could leave us a review, please, 5 stars. It helps us so much.
Absolutely.
If you actually do leave a review and put something into it, we'll actually read it out in the next episode. I will give you that. We will take up a bit more time on that. So, yeah, let's open that floodgate.
God, we're gonna do shout outs.
You know what? We're gonna whore ourselves out. If you write us a review, we'll read it out.
All right,
Absolutely.
all
Gotta
right,
be
I'm
5 stars. If you're a 1 star, you can go fuck yourself.
I mean, yes, of course. Um,
But yep, so as always, you can go to our website fromthesilverscreen.com. You can follow us on there. You can follow us on all of our social media things. Go to the website, it has all the links there. You can follow me on Twitter at Josh Tregenza. Damian, you're not on Twitter, but people can find you on Instagram and Facebook and all of that.
Absolutely. Instagram, Damian_Danaher, all one word. On Facebook, if you dare to try and friend me, I'm sure eventually I'll get back to you at some point. And look, I'll probably mistake you for someone who's trying to sell me a house, which is like a big thing at the moment. So if I don't get back to you eventually, or if I get back to you with a list of furniture that I've got, please believe that, I mean, either way, I do care about your input. So you know what, potato potato,
Unless you give
we're
us
all
1 star.
friends here. At least you give us 1 star, in which case I hope you die in a car fire. And on that note, great to be back, Josh.
Absolutely. It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. I'm looking forward to this new direction that we're going in. I almost feel like the Man of Steel, Batman v Superman was a kind of standalone duologue, and now we're sort of
It
going
was the
to.
prep work.
It was the prep work. It was the prep work, and this is the true birth of the channel. So for the faithful that have listened to us so far, thank you so much for your support. We hope it continues onwards. We hope to continue, chatting and enjoying ourselves, and basically just shooting the shit about, one film that we've claimed to discuss, and then basically tangentially discussing about 6 or 7 other films also, which I would argue, if nothing else, is just good bang for your buck. So, in other words,
Absolutely.
You're welcome, Internet.
And with that, thank you very much, listeners. We will talk to you next time when we talk about the Civil War.
Bye-bye.
I want to give a shout out to Scoot McNeary each episode.
I was gonna actually ask you, should we make that like Jimmy Kimmel, Matt Damon thing?
Yes. I want to get to the point that we keep doing it, to the point that if we can get Scoot McNeary, I feel like that's a good place to go. Like, Scoot isn't famous enough, but he's famous enough.
I was gonna say, I love that level of audaciousness.
Scoot obviously listens to us.
That we want Scoot. Scoot and only Scoot.
Just a shout out to him each time.
No one knows who he is.